Shalom, 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 everybody. Welcome back. What's up? How y'all doing today? Hope everybody's having a wonderful day. Welcome back to Reading with Shilo. We're here to get in with the next two chapters of BARAK and Deborah United by Mary L. Windsor and Dr. Rudolph R. Windsor. We are in chapter 11. We're doing 11 and 12 today. 11 and 12 today. Man, some stuff going on, man. BARAK then found out that Deborah got to marry her brother-in-law, and he ain't liking it. He done gave her some jewelry. Oh, but he got to go back, man. Got to go back and finish what he was doing, fighting in the hills and riding Laban. So we're gonna get into it. We're gonna get right into it and see what BARAK is gonna do now and what Deborah is gonna do now. BARAK and Deborah United. Love, Freedom, and Spirituality by Mary L. Windsor and Dr. Rudolph R. Windsor. Chapter 11. In the fortress city of Harosheth Hagoyim, the high officials of this Canaanite stronghold began to gather for a very important meeting, summoned by King Jabin. After all of the officials of state had assembled, King Jabin marched to his polished copper throne with his escorting soldiers. The name Jabin was a title used by various kings of the city of Hazor. After Joshua, the successor of Moses, burned the city of Hazor, some of its people escaped from Hazor in Upper Galilee and fled westward to the southern area of the Carmel mountain range, not far from the Kishon River. It was here that the Canaanite expert builders constructed a city fortress in the forest and named it Harosheth Hagoyim. The kings of this city retained the title Jabin and the name Hazor, no doubt for prestige reasons, because Hazor was the head or capital of many Canaanite cities before Joshua destroyed it. The king's throne was located at the far end of the grand hall of the Canaanites, which was shaped like a rectangle. In back of the throne stood a huge bronze statue of the god Baal with his brass helmet. Courtiers and nobles stood along both sides of the hall as the king walked briskly in. The eyes of everyone were fixed on him. The king passed by the columns that supported the edifice. Torches extended out from the walls every 15 feet to supply heat and light when needed. Attention in the name of the king, proclaimed the crier. King Jabin sat down on his throne wearing a purple toga with a golden border draped around his shoulders. He was already past 70 years of age, had a complexion of a coffee bean, and a broad nose, thick lips, and was short and stocky. Then he turned to his ministers of state. Some of you are aware of why we are here today, and some of you may not be. Therefore, I shall have my commander-in-chief of the army give you the complete report. To my left is General Cicero. General Cicero stepped forward 3 cubits and began. I shall set aside the formalities and get right to the point. The general was past 65 years old. Then he spoke. Damn, 70 and 65. Then he spoke. 65. Yes, sir. Then he spoke. We are here today to discuss the Hebrew problem. The situation has reached a new critical level, he said, as he moved his helmet and rubbed his bald head. As he removed his helmet and rubbed his bald head. Keep it short as you can, the king reminded him. Yes, my king. The Hebrews are increasing in alarming numbers, and they are penetrating into the valley. Our patrols are having more and more skirmishes with them. Recently, one of our reported that this BARAK, a mountain fighter, brought his soldiers into the Jezreel Valley against the king's orders. Finally, O king, there are reports that a new leader is rising among the Hebrews, Sisera said reluctantly. And what is his name? The vizier asked, holding a map of Canaan in his hand. The general was hesitant to mention the name because of fear that he would be ridiculed. He mumbled the name Deborah. Deborah. What's wrong with you, general? I cannot hear you. Speak up, the king ordered, sitting up straight on his throne. Deborah, he repeated louder. That's a woman's name, the vizier commented. Are you sure? The minister chuckled. Sisera replied, I am as sure as Mount Carmel overlooks the great sea. I am as sure as Mount Carmel overlooks the great sea. The king said, the name Deborah means bumblebee. Be careful, lest she buzzes around and inflicts her sting on you and on the entire Canaanite nation. The vizier took 3 steps to the right and returned. Tell us something about this woman, Deborah. He requested as he struck the roll-up map into his left hand. She is supposed to be some kind of judge, Sisera explained, and a teacher of the laws and the customs of her people. The vizier looked down with his dark brown eyes towards the floor, then looked up and asked, is there anything else? There is. I hear that this, as she is a prophetess, Sisera added. Prophets and prophetesses are dangerous folks. Have you heard anything concerning what she prophesies? It's a spider. It's a spider. The only thing that I have heard is that she tells her people to repent, to return to the laws of their God, to give to the poor, to help the widows, to assist the fatherless, and to treat the stranger with kindness. Also, she teaches that our practice of marrying our daughters and sisters is an abomination before God. And also, she teaches that our practice of marrying our daughters and sisters is an abomination before God. Furthermore, she says that our God and goddesses, Baal and Ashtaroth, are idols, and the Hebrews should stop worshiping them, and they will face the wrath of God. Or they will face the wrath of God. Blasphemy! Blasphemy, yelled the high priest, who wore a large green mitre on his head. We can't let these Hebrews get away with this. That's right, responded all the ministers of state, looking at each other. That's right. The king stood up quickly with his golden turban-like crown sparkling. I see that we have complete agreement in the grand hall, he said, as he sat down, pulling aside part of his toga behind him. General Sisera, are we finished? Not quite, my lord. I have one more thing to add. Let's hear it. Our spies inform me that this woman, Deborah, tells her people that if they obey their God, he will send them a deliverer. Come on, go sit over there. He gonna send them a deliverer. He is going to bring them a deliverer. A deliverer. This deliverer, she said, will crack the jaws of Jabin and his army. Will crack the jaws of Jabin and his army. Did you hear that? Inquired the king, looking infuriated. Her words are pregnant with the seed of rebellion. I agree, my lord. Thank you, Sisera. I heard your report, and I listened to you carefully. We must use cunning in dealing with the Hebrew problem that is growing larger and larger every day. In view of this, this is what I propose. I want you to form yourselves into 3 committees, and do a thorough study of the best way we can deal with these Hebrews. Come up with a good plan and use the best tactics you can. My vizier will head the first committee. The high priest will head the second committee, and you, General Cicero, will head the third. If not, report back to me in 3 weeks. Stop. If you're going to get a book, get a book. Get up in there and look at it. All right. Pick the book up and put it back where it goes. Yes, sir. Put it back where it goes. Put the book in first, DJ. Yes, sir. Turn the book around. Now move the other book. There you go. Good teamwork. That's how you help each other. You have to move the book. Somebody move the book in the back. DJ, do not try to force it in like that. Move the book behind it. Oh, make an opening, son. There you go. Like that. Like that. And push it over. There you go. Now push it over. Good job. That works. Good job. Now at this time, the season was moving towards middle of the winter, and as usual, middle of the winter. And as usual, the winter manifested itself by providing plenty of rain in Israel. It had been raining for several days without stop. When Deborah woke up this morning, she felt emotionally drained, and she wondered what kind of day it was going to be. Her instincts were telling her that an exciting, unexpected event was going to happen. Therefore, she prepared herself for an eventuality. She usually would meet 3 times a week with visitors to discuss their various problems and give her decisions. This morning was one of those days. The people would be coming, and she quickly got dressed. After she finished breakfast, she walked toward the study room and bumped into the side of the door. "My lady, you appear a little tired today," commented Sarah. "Maybe it would be better to have public meetings just twice a week instead of 3 times. And that would give you more time to rest." "Thank you, Sarah. I'll be all right. It is a mental thing, you know. Mind over matter, you see, Sarah. When we came into this world, we came to experience ups and downs, to learn our lessons in life, to grow spiritually, and to help others." "Well, you are surely doing just that, I must say," she agreed as she tightened her white apron around her waist. "Sarah, before I go to prepare for this morning's meeting, I would like to make a point. When my soul separates from my body and is greeted by my departed ancestors and finally passes over to God, then the body that I leave here on earth will have plenty of time to rest." "My lady," Sarah said, as she walked away looking thoughtful, "you are as deep as the well of water." Whenever Deborah had a meeting scheduled, she would place a piece of papyrus on the table. As the people came into the sitting room, they would write down their names, and Deborah would call out their attendees on a first come, first served basis. The only deviation from this procedure was in the case of an emergency. After a while, the people started coming, men, women, and young adults. Deborah came in later with 2 of her handmaids, 2 male servants, and 1 was Noxian. These men helped keep order, and they could handle themselves very well because they received their training in the army of Shamgar, the last judge. When Deborah entered, she greeted everyone with the word peace and a big smile. "It is so nice to see more young men and ladies here today. And because you came, I want to take this opportunity to speak to you about good fathers and mothers. Before you have children or get married, it is very important that you make the right decisions, because the decisions you make are going to affect your life, your children, and your relatives for many years to come. A short time of pleasure, if there is any, can disrupt your life and cause you many headaches if your decision is not well thought out and planned. Bringing children into the world is a great responsibility. If both of you are not ready for parenthood, don't rush into it. When you want children, you should not only think about what makes you happy, but also what will make the children happy emotionally. Most boys who have emotional problems are from families where the father is not in the home for one reason or another. Deborah paused for a moment. Mother Deborah, can you tell me what are some of these emotional problems? Asked the young lady. Many boys who grow up without the guidance of their fathers during the early years of their lives tend to be shy, distant, fearful, resentful, dependent, girlish, and immature. So be careful about raising boys without fathers. Another lady far back in the courtyard raised her hand and spoke. My name is Hulda Navi, and I live at home with my grandmother, my mother, my 3 sisters, and my 8-year-old brother. He has some of the same emotional problems you just mentioned. Is there anything that I can do for him? Yes. Where is his father? He died 6 years ago. From what you're telling me, your brother is being raised around all females. When there is no father in the home, find a substitute father for the boys. I'm referring to a good role model, she continued. This substitute can be a stepfather, an older brother, an uncle, a grandfather, an older cousin, or just a decent man in the neighborhood who is willing to guide a younger boy in becoming a good man. Ladies, we can provide a boy with food, clothing, shelter, money, and schooling, but we cannot be an example to boys because we are females. Boys need good males to be their examples. On the same token, a father cannot be an example and cannot teach his daughters how to be a woman. Only another woman can do that by teaching and being an example day by day. Only a good woman, only another woman can do that by teaching and being an example day by day. Boys need good males to be their examples. On the same token, a father cannot be an example and cannot teach his daughter how to be a woman. Some would disagree. Only another woman can do that by teaching and being an example day by day. I solely agree. No, sir. No, sir. Thank you. After Deborah completed her talk about being good fathers and mothers, she proceeded to deal with the matters at hand. Sarah, read the first name on the list. After Deborah had finished answering the questions of the first 2 names on the list, Sarah read the third name. This was part of Sarah's duties because she could read and write in 3 languages. The third name on the list is Shemurah of the tribe of Judah, Sarah called out as she looked around the crowd for her to answer. I am Shemurah. Excuse me, my dear sister, for not responding right away. First of all, I want to thank Deborah for having these important hearings. These meetings permit us to get our questions answered by someone who knows our holy writings. I live in the city of Jebus. We are where the Jebusites dwell. Give me 1 second. I live in the city of Jebus, where the Jebusites dwell. And my son met a Canaanite girl he wants to marry. Since she is not Hebrew, can my son marry her? Give me a second. But think on that. Canaanite woman, Hebrew son. Can he marry her? Come on, let's go, right? So I made it. I made it. Sorry. Let me get back to it. Ooh. I live near the city of Jebus, where the Jebusites dwell, and my son met a Canaanite girl he wants to marry. Since she is not Hebrew, can my son marry her? Is that the young lady and your son sitting next to you, Deborah inquired. Yes, this is my son Adam, and over there is his friend Tamar. Tamar had smooth skin. She reflected the radiance of the full moon and the purity of the springtime. Also, she had a tender, loveliness that mesmerized. She is very beautiful, and I get a very good feeling about her. Tell me, where are your parents? They are in the city of Jebus. Do they know that you are here? No, my parents put me out 2 months ago, and I now live with Mrs. Shamara. In one sense, said Deborah, you are fortunate. Your father could have given you up to be sacrificed for a price. She pointed out softly, I want you to forgive your father. When you forgive, you relieve yourself of a heavy burden and you grow spiritually. That's hard, Mother Deborah, but I'll try. Why did they put you out, my dear? My family is very poor, and there are 13 brothers and sisters. My father said to me many times that he would put me out as soon as I reached childbearing age. She cried as tears ran down her brown cheeks. Deborah paused a moment so that Tamar could get herself together. Tamar wore a beige-colored shawl over her head, which dropped over her shoulders. Tamar, how did you meet Adam and Mrs. Shamora? I first met Adam at the marketplace where I went to buy food for my mother. Here, we used to meet from time to time and talk. On the day that my father put me out, he said to me, you are a woman now. You can earn a living for yourself. I cannot afford to take care of you any longer, but here are a few coins to help you get started. As I left the house, my mother stood at the door and watched me leave without saying a word. Mrs. Shamora felt her sorrow. It is so sad when a daughter is put out of the house and the mother has nothing to say. And wander around the marketplace until almost sunset. And then I started down the road, now not knowing where I was going. That was when I met Mrs. Shamora. She saw me crying and asked what was troubling me. I told her my situation and she invited me to stay with her. Tamar said as she wiped the tears from her eyes. Deborah took a deep breath and sighed. Tamar's story is so touching that it struck at the core of her humanity. She knew that she had to answer Mrs. Shamora's question. Could the Hebrew son marry the Canaanite girl? Deborah knew that there is an answer to the question, but it was not an easy one. The answer should be given in a compassionate and prudent manner. If not, she thought, it would be heaping more hurt on the top of an existing hurt. We all are stricken with grief from the rejection which this young lady has received from her father, and we feel her pain. Will you please come up here? Are you speaking to me? Asked Tamar. Yes, Deborah said, holding out her hand and drew her close. Are you feeling better now? Yes, Tamar answered, looking shy as she cast her head down. You see, Tamar, every nation and people have their laws and customs, and they are different from one another. Now, the Hebrew laws are very different from most nations. Deborah then took her hand and placed it around Tamar's shoulders. Tamar, my dear, the Hebrew law is very clear on the point of marriage. It states that we shall not give our daughters to other nations to marry, nor shall we take their daughters for our sons, she said to her softly and gently, as she pulled Tamar close to her. With her head lowered, Tamar lifted her head and eyes slightly and said, I love Adam. Is there something I can at least do? Adam was strong, handsome-looking young man with dark brown eyes, black hair, and stood 6 feet tall. Well, there's one thing, but you would have to make a sacrifice, Deborah assured her. Tamar looked puzzled. Mother Deborah, what do you mean by that? You would have to give up something in order for the marriage to take place. By that, I mean you would have to study about our laws and customs for at least 1 year. Second, if you find that our God and laws are acceptable, you would be asked to give up the graven images of Baal, Ashtaroth, and the other gods with which you were raised. Would there be some kind of ceremony after 1 year training period? You would have to stand before our priests and elders, and they would ask you questions about the laws and the customs. After that, you would be required to take an oath testifying to the fact that you believe in the invisible God of the universe and the laws that he gave unto his servant Moses, the prophet. Finally, you would have to undergo purification. This includes the taking of ritual bath and then rinsing or immersing the entire body under pure rainwater collected in the pool. When all of this is completed, you will be accepted as one of us, just as Zipporah, the Midianite wife of Moses, was accepted among us. Does this seem like something you would want to do? Without hesitation, Tamar answered, yes. Here you go, sir. But you're going to need to learn how to put it back together yourself. I don't come up in here playing that guitar. You understand, sir? All right. No, y'all can sit in here. I don't mind y'all sitting in here. I'd rather y'all sit in here. Go back in the room. He can stay in here if he wants. You go back in the room if you want to go in the back of the room. Okay, then sit yourself down then. Goodbye. I'll be here. Does this seem like something you would want to do? Without hesitation, Tamar answered, yes. Now, you don't have to make a quick decision today, Deborah explained. You can take your time and think about it, my dear child. Mother Deborah, I thank you, but in all due respect, I don't need to think about it because I have lived with Mrs. Shimura for the last 2 months, and she lives a very righteous life. If it is all right with you and Mrs. Shimura, I stand ready to begin my studies now. All right. It is your decision, my dear. At that climatic moment, Mrs. Shimura and her teenage son Adam ran up and embraced Tamar and Deborah. Mrs. Shimura and her son thanked her for all her help. Deborah, you were just remarkable. You handled yourself well, Shimura said, as her husband Eli walked up. He confirmed the words of his wife. Now I can understand why you find favor in the eyesight of so many people. I had to see for myself, and I am astonished at your knowledge, compassion, and wisdom. Truly, the Spirit of the Lord abides within you. The training I give my son in masonry and carpentry will increase since he will be getting married in a little over a year. This trade will help him to support his wife and his family. I commend you for your interest. For your interest you are taking with your sons. My fathers should follow more fathers. Hey, chill out. Sit up there, please. Sit up there, please. And we'll solve that problem. We'll solve it. Since you can't make up your mind, I'm going to help you make up your mind. You're going to sit here and you're going to listen. And we still have one more chapter left to go. Huh? I'm not sure. But let's see what Mother Deborah is saying. I commend you for your interest you are taking with your son. More fathers should follow in the same footsteps, Deborah commented, smiling. In addition, he added, I have been thinking about inviting other boys in our neighborhood to take training along with my son. I am glad you have become not only a person of success, but also a man of value to our community, Deborah intimated. Well, thank you, Deborah. Deborah looked down, then glancing quickly at Tamar. Hundreds of years ago, there was a righteous king who ruled over the city of Jebus, and the name of Jebus at that time was Salem. The name of that king was Melchizedek, and he was also a priest of the Most High God. Our ancestor Abraham received his earthly learning from him. This included the secret teachings of the ages. When Abraham received the teachings and the blessings from Melchizedek, his spiritual force increased to a higher degree. Abraham paid him tithes to show his thanks. You must understand, Tamar, that many of your ancestors learned about the Most High God from Melchizedek, but as time passed, many of these teachings disappeared. How do you know all this? Deborah touched her gently on the arm and continued. There are old records in the tabernacles at Shilo which mention this, my dear child. Before Mrs. Shemoria and her family departed, Deborah made arrangements for Tamar to meet with her once a month to review her studies. Moreover, Deborah informed Mrs. Shemoria that if Tamar needed a job, she could come and work at her estate. Not too far away from the city of Hebron, the elders and princes of the southern Hebrew tribes of Simeon and Benjamin, Dan and Judah held an important. What did I tell you to do? What did I tell you to do? Here you go. Sit. Not too far away from the city of Hebron, the elders and princes of the southern Hebrew tribes of Simeon, Benjamin, Dan, and Judah held an important meeting. The subject of the meeting was to discuss the rising star of Deborah, which they considered a threat to their authority. The meeting with the princes took place in the rear courtyard of Prince Abihu's estate. Within the center of the white walls of the courtyard grew a large terebinth oak tree, spreading its broad branches in all directions. The elders and princes sat on stone benches covered with cushions along the side of the walls. Prince Abihu of the tribe of Judah had just completed the welcoming ceremony for the meeting. All of you have been informed of why you are here, said the 35-year-old prince, wearing a dark blue toga. Now, feel free to voice your opinions, he said, rubbing his big belly. This woman, Deborah, as they call her, is is taking away from us the loyalty of our people. Something should be done about her, stressed the prince from the tribe of Dan. Yes, more and more of our people are ignoring us, shouted several others. Then the prince of the tribe of Simeon came forward. There are some people who call her a prophetess. Where is it written in our holy books that a woman can be a prophetess? This kind of behavior is insulting to us. Are we going to let this mere woman take the leadership of the princes? No, no, they shouted. The leadership of the tribes belongs to the tribe of Judah. Is it not written that the scepter shall not depart from Judah? Prince Abihu reminded them. He continued. He reminded them. Prince Abihu reminded them. He continued after the death of Joshua. The children of Israel asked the Lord, saying, who shall go up first against the Canaanites to fight against them? And the Lord said, Judah shall go up. You understand, the leadership belongs to the tribe of Judah, and we cannot let a woman humiliate us. Intimated the shrewd prince with piercing eyes. Then the prince of the tribe of Benjamin turned to the crowd. If we let her get away with this, we will lose control of our women, and they will follow in her footsteps. Well, what can we do? Another prince asked. I will get to that in a moment, answered Prince Abihu. Our spies have reported to us that BARAK has been seen at least twice at Deborah's estate. At Deborah's estate, that boy came twice at least. Yeah. Say it like that. All right. If you're going to sit there, sit right there. Our spies have reported. What did I tell you to do? What did I tell you to do? Where did I tell you to sit? Okay, then do it, son. We shouldn't have to do this, son. We shouldn't have to keep going over things over and over again. I understand sometimes you will have to. Speak up, son. Speak up so daddy can hear you. Yeah, wait till I'm done. Do what I say do, and we won't have any issues. The more you don't do it, that's the more daddy's going to have to escalate. Yes, sir, escalate. And there will have to be a consequence for you. You should already know what it is. All right. Well, what can we do? Another prince asked. I will get to that in a moment. Answered Prince Abihu. Our spies have reported to us that BARAK has been seen at least twice at Deborah's estate. They must have some kind of alliance or a romantic interest or both. An alliance. But what can we do? Asked the 25-year-old prince from the tribe of Benjamin. Abihu then looked down. He thought. Then he raised his head. I can think of two things. One, we can send a letter to Deborah expressing our dissatisfaction with the way she is placing herself in a man's role. Two, we can send a letter to BARAK asking him to come and answer certain questions. After that, we shall know whether or not we can support his war efforts. Yes, that sounds good to all of us, they shouted in confirmation. Good! Then Abihu said, I will have the scribes write the letter tonight. Chapter 12. 3 weeks later, in the fortress city of Harosheth Hagoyim, which is nicknamed Hazar, the high officials of King Jabin began to assemble for the second important meeting. It was 3 weeks earlier that King Jabin had appointed 3 committees to come up with the recommendations to deal with the Hebrew situation. Please pick it up for me, please. Now, these committees were ready. King Jabin was a huge muscular man who sat on his throne made of polished copper. The throne was covered with animal skins dyed in purple and scarlet. Guards with spears and swords stood on both sides of the throne. King Jabin had a dark brown complexion with bulging cheeks. Bulging cheeks. That boy has some big old cheeks. That's correct. Bulging cheeks. The first order of business is on this day was a receiving of the ambassador of Ethiopia. After this had been finished, the king summoned his advisors and the three committees to the high priest, to approach the throne. Before he opened the meeting, he asked the high priest to render a short prayer. O Baal, our God, praise be thy great name. Man, I don't really want to read this part. Praise be our great name, thy great name. May thy might and power continue to possess the entire earth and give us the strength and the wisdom to overcome our enemies, the Hebrews. We all know why we are here today. So without further delay, we shall hear from the vizier Mishkiat, Mashkit, the Lord, my king. I recommend that we impose more taxes on the Hebrews. And if they falter, we can confiscate their property and put them into hard labor. That sounds familiar. Point number 2, let the king send out a decree that states that if any Hebrew brings any of their flocks into the Jezreel Valley, the flocks will be confiscated. Point number 3, I recommend that the king offer 10 talents of gold for information leading to the capture of Barak. Point number 4, and pertaining to this woman called Deborah, I recommend that we send out additional spies to keep a close watch of this queen bee. A queen bee like her could be dangerous, O king. I'll give that some consideration, the king added. Now I want to hear from General Cicero. The general stepped forward in full uniform with his sword on his side, saluted the king, and removed his gold helmet. My lord, I am in favor of a complete declaration of war against the Hebrews that are north of the Jezreel Valley. Why do you recommend war at this time? Inquired the king as he leaned forward. It would be easier to destroy them while they are weak. Every day that we delay, they will increase in numbers and skill. Why haven't Barak and his men been caught? For 2 reasons, my lord. For one thing, he is as fast as lightning. And that's what his name means. 2, he manages to avoid our larger units on level ground. And our chariots are most effective. Instead, he fights mostly in the mountains, hills, in gullies, and ravines where it is very difficult for us to use our horses and chariots against him. If that is the case, we must set a trap for him and lure him out into the opening, commented the king as he placed his elbow on his armrest. Another thing, my lord, recently my spies informed me that there has been contact between Deborah and Barak. Interesting, the king muttered. How was this contact made? A horseman was seen receiving something from Barak, and he went to the house of Deborah. After listening to Cicero's words, the king commented, have your men continue to watch these 2 hungry scorpions. It's done, my lord. Now I want to hear from the high priest, Baal, who is the servant of Baal, our God. He wore a green mitre on his head decked with silver and precious stones. The entire hall of officials, he wore a green mitre on his head, decked with silver and precious stones. The entire hall of officials gave him a big applause as he walked in the direction of the king. My priest, I have studied the records. My priest and I have studied the records of the nations that had contact with these Hebrews. These nations are the Egyptians, the Midianites, the Moabites, the Babylonians, and the Assyrians. We have checked their records and oral reports to see how these nations dealt with the Hebrews. Our search led us to a very interesting conclusion, O king. And what might that be? Inquired the king as he leaned forward from his reclining position. We found out that they can be conquered easy if they get them into sin. If we can get them into sin against their God. How do we do this? Asked the king. Well, we have learned this from the records of Balaam, the prophet of Mesopotamia, from the records of Balak, the king of Moab, and from the scrolls of the Hebrews called Numbers and Deuteronomy. In some of these scrolls, work them legs out. It is written that if the Hebrews don't keep the commandments of their God, he will curse them. In which way would their God curse them? He will curse them with famine, disease, destruction, slavery, oppression, captivity, mental suffering, and etc. You mentioned that you had searched out the histories of such nations as the Midianites and the Moabites. What did your historical research uncover? The king asked eagerly. After reading the histories of these nations, we read that Balak, the king of Moab, summoned the leader of the Midianites to discuss how they can deal with the Hebrews because they were afraid of them. Finally, they decided to call Balaam of northern Mesopotamia to put a curse on the Hebrews. After Balaam arrived, he told Balak that he could not curse Israel because they were blessed. Why were they blessed? They were blessed for the very reason that their God didn't find any iniquity among them, nor had he seen any corruption in Israel. Go sit over there. In other words, my Lord, they were living according to the ways of their God. If they could not be cursed, however, soon thereafter, everything changed. Finally, Balaam explained to the Midianites and the Moabites how they could get Israel to sin. Go on, continue. The Moabites did according to the words of Balaam, explained the high priest. They brought out the most beautiful, seductive Moabite and Midianite women, and the Hebrew men were seduced by them. After that, these women called the Hebrew men to the service of their God, and the Hebrews bowed down to them and corrupted themselves in the eyesight of their God. According to the Hebrew and Midianite scrolls, the God of the Hebrews became angry, and he inflicted a plague on them that killed over 20,000 Hebrews for their iniquities. Very interesting, said King. I want to thank you and your associates for the fine work you have done. Is there anything else? Yes, my Lord. Yes, my Lord. These Hebrews came into our country over 150 years ago under the leadership of a man called Joshua, and they have been taking our land ever since. They are like the ox that licks up the grass. They must be stopped, or else they will take all our lands and destroy our culture, including our gods, continued the high priest. What do you suggest we do to get the Hebrews to commit iniquity? Asked the viziers. We can put our festivals in various cities and invite the Hebrews to come. Then get our women to lure them into dancing, drinking, and you know what will follow next. The ladies will seduce them to drink and eating creeping things. After that, the Hebrews will worship our gods, remarked the high priest. Drinking and eating creeping things. No, sir. The ladies will seduce them to drink and to eat creeping things, crawfish. And after that, the Hebrews will worship our gods, remarked the high priest. What else can we do to weaken and destroy the Hebrews? Asked General Cicero. We can use an old plan called divide and conquer by sowing the seed of jealousy and hatred among the various princes and heads of the Hebrew tribes. By taxing one leader and not taxing another, we can create discord and distrust among the tribes and families. This can be achieved by giving gifts to those families who worship our gods, Baal and Astaroth, making one family feel that it is better off than another. We will weaken the families and communities and produce more disunity, stated the high priest with confidence. Excellent, exclaimed the king. Hey, my lord, there is one more thing. This woman, Deborah. Hold on. All right. Give me a second. Let's go. Come on. You coming? Or are you going to finish listening? All right. We'll go to sleep. Come on. Let's go home. Hurry up. My bad. Excuse me. All right. Oh, man. Excellent, excellent, exclaimed the king. Hey, my lord, there's one more thing. This woman, Deborah, I think that something should be done about her. Are you afraid of a mere woman? Inquired the king. Yes, somewhat. I am fearful of what she can do to our nation and to our people and to our gods. Her rapid rise in the man's world is a dangerous omen in itself, the high priest said, looking disturbed. Do you think that this mere woman can rise to be a leader over the Hebrews? Asked the king. Yes, answered the high priest. We remember the rise of Queen Hatshepsut of Egypt. She became the supreme ruler of the land because the gods favored her. It is very possible that Deborah can rise also. I shall have my spies keep a close eye on her. If this will please you, Sisera volunteered. The king stood up on his feet. After that, he walked back and forth 3 times in front of his throne, looking down in deep thought with his hands behind his back. He stopped in front of his throne and faced towards his ministers and spoke. Our plan will be to weaken and to destroy the Hebrews. We shall put into action various methods to get the Hebrews to sin against their God. I will leave these methods up to you to implement. Are there any further comments or questions? If there aren't, you are now free to proceed with the implementations of our plans. After the meeting, the 3 committees went to work right away, discussing and reviewing and putting the finishing touches on their plan to corrupt and destroy the Hebrews. According to the king, this was a matter of urgency and was to be put into action in a few days. First, they decided to carry out their plan against the Hebrew village near the city of Nahalo. In the meantime, far in the Zebulun hills, Barak was relaxing in his tent. Then Barak heard the approach of a fast-running horse. He quickly stood up and looked through the opening. There he could see a young man riding through his camp. The rider said, I have a letter for General Barak. Where is he? You're looking for him? You're looking at him. Who sent the letter? It was from my lord, Prince Abihu, answered the young man as he dismounted his ebony-colored horse. Oh yes, Prince Abihu. I've been waiting to hear from him. Finally, he has written me. Barak took the letter and began to read. To my fellow Prince Barak, Shalom, Ihu. Shalom, Iha. Peace be unto you. I hope you are well these days. I shall not trouble thee with small talk. Get right to the heart of the matter. I have met with the elders and princes of the southern Hebrew tribes to consider your request for our soldiers. I would like for you to come to Hebron and meet with me so that I can be able to make a final decision. I do expect to see you soon. Abihu ben Abinadab. After Barak finished reading the letter, he lowered the letter to his waist, raised his head, and smiled. He thought, could it be that Prince Abihu was now ready to supply Judean soldiers to help him fight with the Canaanites? This was the very moment he was waiting for, and he was optimistic. He could not wait to return to the city of Hebron to meet with Abihu, the prince of the largest tribe among the Hebrews. And that was chapter 12. That was chapter 11 and 12. Man. Barak don't know what he about to walk right into. Barak don't know what he about to walk right into. There's murmuring going on amongst the people. Not murmuring. There's talk. There's murmuring. There's murmuring. Because they mad at the position, they're going to take their position. But if they was doing what they were supposed to be doing. Trying to see how long the next chapters are. Because I kind of want to read it. I kind of want to go into it. 13. Huh? Well, that answers that. I'm not going to go into it. We'll get it later. That was chapter 11 and 12, man. Chapters 11 and 12 of Barak and Deborah United. Barak and Deborah United. By Mary L. Windsor and Dr. Rudolph R. Windsor. Yeah, Windsor. Yes, Mary L. Windsor and Dr. Rudolph R. Windsor. We are, I want to say, over halfway done with the book. I'm over halfway done with the book. Let's see. I'm about to go. I'm about to take you. Let me get off of this. 314 pages, and we are on page 157. We're probably right at half. Right at half. But man, that was that. Chapter 11 and 12. We'll come back and see what's going on next time with BARAK and Deborah. But man, thank you everybody for sticking with me, holding it down, reading with Shilo. We're gonna keep pushing till we finish the book, and we're gonna see what the next books to read. I got a couple more in. Marcus Garvey, a couple other ones, and we'll have to see which one of those will be read. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But until next time, man, shalom, Shilo out. Shilo out. I hope y'all have a wonderful day. And let's keep pushing and see what we can learn and grow from. Shalom. Let's get this thing off my ball. Bam.